everyone! Thank you so much for tuning into these videos and learning with us online. Today I'm going to teach you guys the second technique video in this series, so if you haven't tuned your instrument or warmed up yet, go ahead and do that and then come back. The first thing that we're going to do today is an A major scale with slurs. So the first thing you should be thinking about is how many sharps are in an A major scale? 3. And the next question that you should have is which 3 sharps are they? F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. So with that being said, we're going to get started. I'll play an A major scale while you sing the notes, and then the second time around, you can play the scale with me. Also, just for a challenge, you guys need to start using 4th finger. So when we have D and A, please use your 4th finger. I'm going to play an A major scale starting on low A in half notes. 1, 2, ready, go. Alright, you should have been singing that time, so this time you're going to play along with me. Half notes slurred, and A major scale starting on 1st finger on the G string. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, great. The next thing that we're going to do is play a song, but if you think that that A major scale is really easy, there's 2 challenges that you can try. First, you can play this scale 2 to a bow, with 2 notes to 1 bow, 2 octaves, so you can just play A to A, then come back down 2 octaves. Or, if you want to work on your bow, you can try and play 4 notes to a bow, like this. That's another thing that you could do, and then if you think that you have the hang of that, maybe by the end of this week you can play the whole scale on 1 bow. But that's only if you're really feeling like you can. Don't push yourself if you don't think that you can do it. Don't worry. Next thing we're going to work on is a song. So we're going to move to the Suzuki book, page 32, which you guys should have. The song is called Allegro, number 8. And if you notice at the bottom of the page, there should be some questions. Like, are you playing with a beautiful sound? Is the tip of your bow steady? There should be 8 questions. I'd suggest when you're practicing, let's work on 1 question this time, and then every day of the week, work on one of the 7 questions that we haven't already worked on. And that way, by the end of this week, the song will sound amazing. So let's work on today. Are you listening carefully for accurate intonation? Number 8, let's work on that. There's a couple other things that I wanted to go over before we start playing. One of them is the markings in the piece. So this piece starts with a staccato bow, which means short. And in the 3rd line, measure 9, we have a tenuto, which means full. So the style is really going to change from the first 2 lines and then when you get to the 3rd line. So keep note of that, and I'll go over it again as we're learning this song. The dynamics start forte, so you should play the song really loud, and then at the end of the 3rd line, there's a decrescendo, which means to get quieter. Then at the beginning of the 4th line, it's forte again. One more thing, at the beginning of the 3rd line, it says dolce. What do you guys think that means? In the context of this piece, it means that it should be different from the rest of the piece, and it should be sweet sounding and very full and luxurious. So let's start with the first two measures of this piece. I'll play them for you, and then we can play them together. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, so that shouldn't be too hard. You're just starting on third finger A and moving on. Some things to take note of are the little numbers on top are the finger numbers. So if you see that A right there has a 3, that means that you're playing third finger A on the E string. And then 0 is for open E, because for this one, you don't have to use your fourth finger. Under the second measure, where there is an F sharp, there's a 1 with a line. That means that you should hold your first finger down the entire time. So let's try these two measures again, and then we're going to move on. 1, 2, ready, go. Great. Let's try that one more time, and this time focus in on how short the bows are on the staccatos, and the notes that have no staccatos should be regular. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, cool. Now we're going to go on to the next two measures, and take note that only measure 3 has staccatos on it. Measure 4 you can play regular. I'll play it for you, and then we'll go over it real quick. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, these two measures are a lot easier than the first two. Think about maybe why they're a little bit easier. All right, these two measures go in a stepwise pattern. So you go 3, 3, 2, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 1, which is kind of like going down the D scale, but you're in A major, so you're not going down the D scale. You're going down the A scale. So let's just try that one more time. Focus on making the two measures different in staccato versus regular notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, that sounds pretty good, I'm assuming. However, we're going to do it one more time, just so that at the end of this measure, well, we're going to do the whole phrase, the whole first phrase, 4 measures, and at the end, make sure to hold out that half note for 2 full beats. So don't really skimp out and be like, You want to have it for the entire 2 beats to fill up the whole measure. 1, 2. So let's play the whole first line, and then we will move on. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, now let's move on to the second line. Does anyone notice anything similar between the first line and the second line? They're the same thing. So everything is the same from the first line to the second line. You might notice that there are no fingerings on the second line, but that's only because you just played it, so you should know. We're going to play the first 2 lines together, and I have faith in you guys. You got this. 1, 2, ready, go. sounded good, I hope. One more thing that I totally forgot to mention is that you end the first line on a down bow, but the beginning of the second line also asks you for a down bow. So what we're going to have to do in the middle is do a small lift. So it should sound like this. Let's just try those two lines one more time and add a lift in the middle. 1, 2, ready, go. Lift. Okay, now we're going to work on line 3, starting at measure 9. This line is a little bit different because of the tenutos and the dolce marking. So this should mean a legato, use a lot of bow and don't really like make the notes sharp, make them kind of go together without slurring the bow. So I'll just play this line through for you guys one time, and then we're going to work on it measure by measure. So it should sound like this. Alright, let's start with the first measure. So it's pretty straightforward. You just got 3 notes. So let's just play through this one time with a full bow and yeah. 1, 2, ready, go. A challenge that could be part of this measure would be doing a string crossing. So when you're trying to do a really smooth string crossing, you want it to kind of just flow. So don't like stop your bow or panic. This might take some practice. Just move from your wrist and your elbow, moving the plane of your arm up just a little bit. These strings are so close together that you don't really need one of these. You just really need a small motion. All right, let's try that again, but we're gonna add measure 2 because they're the same thing. So let's play the first 2 measures very smooth and connected. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, that's the bulk of the difficulty of the third line, so let's move on to the third measure, and it should just get easier from here. The third measure, we're going to play F sharp, then G sharp, then A, then lift up these 2 fingers and play F sharp. It's almost like you're going to start playing it again. Except you're not. You're just going to play F sharp, G sharp, A, F sharp. So let's try that and add it to the first 2 measures in that line. So measures 9, 10, and 11. 1, 2, ready, go. Good. On the last beat of the third measure starts the decrescendo. So that last note should only be a little bit short, or not a little bit shorter, a little bit quieter than the rest of the notes, and then they should gradually, each note after that should be quieter than the last. So let's try the last measure and disregard the fingering that's on top because we're going to play with 4th finger because we can do this. Start with the 4th finger E, then a C sharp, then B. So let's try that again, but each note will be quieter than the first. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, I think we're ready to put the whole third line together. Let's try that. starting on F sharp, first finger. Remember to have smooth full bows, and remember to decrescendo for the last 4 notes. 1, 2, ready, go. Did anyone catch what I did wrong? Take a second and think about it. I used an open E, which is what you guys should not be doing because it's just too comfortable. Using your 4th finger and strengthening your 4th finger is something that you should not take for granted because it's so important, especially when you get to harder music, when you have to shift. There's no open strings up here, so you need to learn how to use your 4th finger and strengthen it. We're going to try that one more time, except I'm not going to make a mistake this time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. So at the end of this line, there's a fermata, which means you can hold it as long as you want. Right now, just because we're learning the piece all together, I'm not going to hold the fermata, but when you're practicing, you should. Let's try and play the whole piece up to the 3rd line, and then after that, we'll learn the 4th line, and then we're done. Starting at measure 1, we're going all the way to the fermata. Just a couple things to keep in mind before we start playing. I'm sorry, that was misleading. At the beginning, for the first 2 lines, we're playing staccato, and then on the 3rd line, we were playing legato. And don't forget to use your 4th finger. All right, now let's actually start. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, moving on to the last line. It's the same as the 1st and 2nd line. So let's just run through that one time, and then we're going to put the whole piece together. And for this little run for the rest of today, I just want to remind you that we are working on question 8, are you listening carefully for accurate intonation? And in a semi-new key, I know A major isn't a new key, but not a lot of us are used to using G sharp, which would be for violin, it would be a high 3rd finger on D string and a high 2nd finger on E string. Yeah, it's just something to get used to, and listening for intonation is always a good idea. I mean, in any aspect, just so that your playing sounds in tune. Anyway, let's get to that 4th line at measure 13. Play it through one time, and then we're going to play the whole piece. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. Now let's play the whole piece one more time. You guys are doing great, and I'm so glad that you're hanging in there. Alright, starting at measure 1, we're going to play the entire piece. First, take a second and think about everything that you need to do during this piece to make it sound the best that you can. Alright, let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4. just really quick, we're going to review what we did last week on perpetual motion. I'm just going to play the song and you guys can play along with me. And then after that, you guys are good to go. So let's play perpetual motion through one time. Remember that all of the notes are staccato. And for this, we're going to try and use fourth finger unless it's stated otherwise that you should play open E. All right. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... I hope you guys were able to follow along. This piece is really good for learning, notes on the A string and the E string and strengthening your fourth finger. So there is a variation at the bottom of the page, which I'll play through for you guys one time. And if you're looking for a challenge, you can play the variation or you can play the regular song really fast, like, something like that, even though I totally messed it up. Let's try the variation one time through. I'm just going to play the first line so that you guys understand how it works. Every note should be a 16th note, and there should be 2 of them, except the last note should be a quarter note. So instead of... it should sound like this. Does that make sense? Okay. Even if it doesn't, it's just a challenge, and that's something to work on if you run out of things to work on this week. Thank you guys so much for practicing and working hard and watching these videos. I'll see you guys on Saturday. Bye.